Hey everyone, Angelo here. Welcome to another Angelo Montella graphic design tutorial. Today we're going to focus on gradients, how to create your own custom gradient swatch in Adobe InDesign, and then add a texture effect on your InDesign project to recreate the starry night, experience the gradient galaxy. So this is just a landing page that I created, a mock-up, just to show you how to do something like this working in a web or print document in InDesign. So let's get started, okay? I'm just going to firstly show you the document that I'm working on here. So if I click on File and Document Setup, I've set the intent in my document setup to web and a width of 1920 pixels by 1080, landscape portrait, landscape orientation, and just hit OK. I showed you how to create your guides. In this case, I created an 8-grid, 8-column, 8 rows, just to make it easier when you're placing your type, and then doing something like this, putting in your buttons for your web-based design. So here we are on the second page of my document here. If you notice in my layers palette here, I've created multiple layers, type, graphics, buttons, shadow, texture, background. Basically all I want to focus on right now is the background, so I'm just going to lock everything else for now. I'm going to click on my rectangle frame tool, work on the background, and then go ahead and draw out a box that stretches for the entire page. Right now it's got no fill, no stroke, so that's okay. I'm going to click off for now. And we're going to focus on Swatches panel. If you don't have Swatches panel open, go up to Window and Color and Swatches. So let's go ahead and click that. I've already created a swatch here. I'm just going to delete that. So I'm going to show you the process of how I did that. So let's delete that swatch for now. And then up here in your Swatches panel, you have these 4 lines with a little arrow pointing downwards. Go ahead and click that. And don't click new color swatch, we want new gradient swatch. So go ahead and click that. And the first thing you want to do is name your swatch, because once you've saved it, it's going to show up in your swatches panel. So you don't want to create a swatch and then call it new gradient swatch, because you may create another one or multiple gradient swatches. So you want to know and differentiate which one is which. So in this case, I'm just going to call it Galaxy Swatch. I'm going to set the type to linear. Radial will be transitioning from the center out. I want to have more flexibility on the angle, so I'm going to leave it on linear. And I've already created a gradient previously, so it's already defaulting to the one I've created. Once you've opened up a new gradient swatch, it's going to default from white to black. So let's go ahead and do that. Just change it white to black. My setting is in RGB, but you can pick Lab, CMYK, or pick 2 swatch colors that you may have created already in your swatches panel. I'm just going to leave it RGB for now. I'm going to focus on this area here, the gradient ramp. I'm going to click that right there, the white color stop, and make it a blue. And don't worry too much at the beginning if you nail these colors at the start, because you can always go back and edit them globally, and they'll change in real time, which is really cool. So I'll just leave it at that blue for now. Don't click OK, because that would set it to blue, from blue to black transition, and we don't want that. So I'm going to click the black one, color stop, and we want a magenta or purple kind of effect there. Back there, make this more blue. Perfect. And again, these can be edited. I'm going to show you how to. So there's our transition there from blue to magenta. Once you've created that, you can go ahead and hit OK. And as you can see, there's our Galaxy swatch now. And if you wanted to create another swatch, it's just the same process. So go ahead and new gradient swatch. So I'm going to click with my selection tool, click the box that we created, and go ahead and click that gradient swatch. So just like we created it, it transitions from blue to magenta. But let's say I wanted this to go in a different direction or location. Let me just turn my guides off for a sec. In your toolbar, you have what's called a gradient swatch tool. This was really cool. I can click that. Make sure your background is selected. Click your gradient swatch, and then anywhere in the left-hand corner, left click, and then drag. You can do that a couple times until you get the exact setting you want. You can come in from center downwards. So any diagonal or any angle you really want. If you create a shorter distance, it's going to give you a lot harsher gradient. Okay, so just keep that in mind. In this case, because I want to mimic this here, where it's coming from purple transition to blue, I'm just going to do the opposite. I'm going to start from the bottom left and work my way up to the top, bottom right to the top left, and then you get something like that. And that's okay for now. That's good. So there's our swatch, and again, if you ever want to edit it, just go ahead and double click the swatch, the gradient swatch, and then you can you can click on one of these, and as you can see, it's updating in real time as I'm transitioning these sliders. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Let's go back to layers. I'm going to lock this background layer. Now I'm going to focus on shadow. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create, if you notice in this example here, it's a lot darker than what I have here. Okay, so that's how you create a gradient swatch. And I'm going to show you how to create a gradient feather on top of this. So just go back to your rectangle frame, create another box on top. Let's just make it black. Actually, let's make it this blue. Okay, I made it blue. And let's go to my effects palette. If you don't have the panel for effects, go to Window, Effects, and down below you have a little effects icon. Go ahead and click that, and we're gonna choose Gradient Feather. This brings up this dialog box here, and much like when we were creating our initial gradient, you have gradient stops from black to white. I'm going to reverse these, and we want the type to be radial in this case. Oops, I accidentally. Let me just cancel up and do that again. Make it radial, and I'm going to switch these over. So now it's transitioning from light to dark because I want the darker tones to come out from the edges. And let's click on the first color stop, which is white, and make the opacity something like 35. Let's click on the black stop and make it decrease it. As you can see, I'm doing that. Look at the gradient on my screen. So maybe something like 60, let's go 70. Alrighty, so let's bring this in on the left, and this is something you're gonna have to play around with until you're satisfied. I'm okay with that for now, so I'm just going to hit OK. Perfect. So there's our gradient. If I move this, you can see there's our initial gradient, and there's our gradient feather. I'm going to go back to layers, and let's lock that shadows. Now we're going to unlock texture. We want to focus on texture because we're going to add kind of a texture like this to almost emulate a starry night. So this is where I'm going to have to switch over to Illustrator. And as you can see, I have a series of textures here that I can choose from. This one seems to work best in this example, so I'm just going to click it, Command C or Control C on a PC. Go back to my InDesign project, make sure you're working on your texture, and then just Command V. As you can see there, my texture is now on that page. If you hold Shift and drag, it will drag it out. Now, as you saw there, right there, that right hand edge is now centered on the page. And I'm just going to bring this down like so. The reason why I don't want to stretch this across the entire page is because those stars would become too big. So basically what I'm going to do is Command C and then Command V to make another copy. You could also just do Alt and drag. There, I've got my stars now, stars on my page. I'm just gonna click on them. Click one, hold shift and click on the other. And then you can go to your effects palette here and play around with the blending modes. Maybe soft light would work. That's very subtle, that's very good actually, I'm happy with that. But you could play with the blending modes and see what works best for you. Multiply or overlay might work well as well. So that's how you would do something like that in terms of creating a gradient, overlaying a gradient feather on top, and then adding a cool texture like that to emulate stars. So if I go back to my layers panel and I unlock type graphics buttons and I lock texture, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my first document here and just copy, highlight everything that I've selected. Go ahead and Control C or Command C. Go to your second page, go to Edit, Paste in Place, and there you go. As you can see, the gradient is a little bit different than what I've initially created, but it gives you the same idea. And you can go back again. If I go to Swatches, double click my gradient, click on this specific blue, I can make it darker, and look at this area here, how it's actually updating in real time. Conversely, I can click on the magenta and make it darker. Obviously you want some kind of a cool transition there, so maybe something like that. So that's how you create gradients, edit them quickly, add a gradient feather, and also a texture on top. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Keep on the lookout for more to come, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed it, and take care. Bye now.